I was watching you go down the hallway. It would appear that you were quite the imbecile, I suppose. Looking to his left, Subaru saw a little girl around the age of 11 or 12. Her face was so sweet that he believed no heart could remain unmoved by a genuine smile of hers. Her large, sky-blue eyes shimmered with pink butterfly patterns in their irises. Beatrice's pale cream blonde hair was long and styled into frilly, drill-shaped twin tails that bounced like springs when pulled. The tips of her twin tails were dyed pink. Subaru crossed his arms and, with a blank expression, pointed at Beatrice. "Hey, clown, is this your child?" The room froze. Roswell blinked, his ever-present grin twitching. For a split second, the usual theatricality in his expression wavered before he tilted his head, eyes narrowing in amusement. "My, how very bold of you, Subaru-kun. Calling me a clown, is it? Hoo-hoo, how fascinating." His sing-song voice remained, but a subtle edge crept in. Sitting in her chair, Amelia's violet eyes widened, her mouth slightly agape. "As Subaru," she stammered, her hands gripping the fabric of her dress. "That was really rude." She looked between him and Roswell, unsure whether to scold Subaru or brace for Roswell's response. Both maids flinched at the blatant disrespect. Ram's usual half-lidded eyes narrowed, and she let out an unimpressed sigh. "Dear guest, have you lost what little sense you had?" she muttered, her sharp tone hiding her irritation. Meanwhile, Rem, usually composed, frowned deeply. "Lord Roswell is the lord of this manor. Insulting him is unacceptable," she said firmly, her hands tightening into fists. Beatrice, standing at Subaru's side, huffed and crossed her arms. "Ha! As if I'd be related to that fool, I suppose." She shot Roswell an annoyed glare before turning her back dramatically. "I have far too much dignity for that accusation." Despite the brewing storm in front of him, Subaru didn't back down. His expression remained blank, unfazed, as if the rising hostility meant nothing. "TCH. He clicked his tongue. "Satoshi. I just asked a question." His gaze flicked toward Roswell, unbothered. "Though, I guess I should expect the Royal Guard to jump at the first sign of trouble, huh?" The heavy silence that followed Subaru's smirk was the final straw. The room remained tense as Subaru's words hung in the air. A heavy silence loomed, the weight of his challenge pressing down on everyone present. Roswell's grin remained, but his golden eyes gleamed with something dangerous. The amused facade he usually wore now felt like a thin veil over something far less playful. His gaze traveled up Subaru's towering frame, no longer the lanky, unimposing boy from before, but a broad, muscle-bound figure that strained against his clothes, each thread seemingly on the verge of tearing apart. Oh my, Roswell cooed, clasping his hands together. "You certainly do enjoy testing the boundaries, Subaru-kun. You've become quite imposing, haven't you?" His voice retained its usual musical lilt, yet there was an unmistakable sharpness beneath it. But strength is not the only measure of a man. Amelia, sensing the rising tension, quickly stepped forward, her silver hair glistening in the candlelight. "Subaru, that was really out of line." She placed a delicate hand on his forearm, which barely budged under her touch. "Roswell is our host, and insulting him like that isn't." Subaru exhaled sharply, cutting her off. His eyes, once playful, now held an unreadable depth. "I just asked a question," he repeated, his voice slow and deliberate. "But I guess honor is a fragile thing, huh?" Ram and Rem exchanged glances. Ram's gaze hardened as she took a step forward, arms folded, her presence as sharp as a blade. "Dear guest, you have the body of a warrior, and also a head of one." Her voice was smooth, yet carried an undeniable sting. Rem, less aggressive but just as firm, followed suit. "Lord Roswell has given us all a home, a purpose. If you do not respect him, then you do not respect us." Beatrice, still standing beside Subaru, scoffed. Roswell chuckled softly. "How cruel, Beatrice. But I suppose that's just your way." He turned his attention back to Subaru, eyes narrowing. "Subaru, the gallant hero who saved Amelia like a true knight. How amusing. You're not the person expected you to be, and yet, some things remain the same. A strong body can move mountains, but a careless tongue can cause avalanches." Subaru smirked. "Then I guess I should be careful not to bury you under one, huh?" The air thickened, anticipation crackling like static. Before things could escalate further, Amelia tightened her grip on Subaru's arm, her voice calm yet urgent. "That's enough, Subaru, please." Subaru looked down at her. Amelia's violet eyes weren't filled with anger, only concern. Her sincerity dulled the sharp edge in his expression. He sighed, rolling his shoulders before stepping back. Fine, fine. I'll play nice. Roswell's smile widened ever so slightly. How irresponsible of you. The maids remained on guard, but the immediate crisis had passed. Beatrice, unimpressed, turned her back on the group with an exaggerated huff. Amelia exhaled in relief, though she knew that tensions between Subaru and Roswell had only just begun. A faint glow flickered within the blue crystal hanging from Amelia's neck, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Then, with a playful hum, a tiny figure emerged in a swirl of mist, Puck, the Great Spirit, stretching his paws with a lazy yawn. Good morning, everyone. Puck chimed, his fluffy tail swishing as he floated into the air. His feline ears twitched, then perked up as he glanced around the room. Oh, my, what's with the long faces? He sniffed the air exaggeratedly, then narrowed his bright eyes. Yikes. Tension in here's thicker than a winter storm. Did someone start a fight without inviting me? Amelia, grateful for the distraction, sighed in exasperation. Puck. The spirit blinked at her, then turned his gaze toward Subaru, who stood with his arms crossed, still exuding a quiet defiance. Roswell, meanwhile, remained seated, his expression one of mild amusement. Ram and Rem were still positioned protectively near their master, though Rem's grip on her hands had eased slightly. Even Beatrice, usually indifferent to most things, looked somewhat exasperated. Puck's tail flicked. Oh ho, don't tell me you all had a big argument while I was asleep. That's no way to start the day, you know. A grumpy morning leads to a grumpy afternoon, and before you know it, poof, a whole grumpy week. Subaru exhaled sharply, rubbing the bridge of his nose. It's nothing, furball. Just the usual misunderstandings. Hello, Bubby. A sickly sweet voice cut through the conversation. Beatrice, now in a good mood upon seeing Puck, ran toward him like a child on Christmas morning. I waited eagerly for you to come out. You'll stay with me, I suppose, Beatrice said sweetly. Sure, no problem, Puck replied, floating downward toward Beatrice's waiting palm. Today is the day we can finally make it happen, together, he ended with a wink. Beatrice beamed with excitement. Ah, this is going to be great. She then ran off to the chair on the right. As soon as we sat down, a maid arrived, carrying an array of dishes. For the appetizer, bowls of soup were placed in front of each of us. Looking around, I noticed everyone taking their first sip with a spoon. The soup had a creamy color, with no floating chunks. It could be a normal mushroom soup, or sand, for all I knew. I had no clue. Still, I grabbed my spoon and took a sip. Exquisite. Truly a masterpiece of culinary craftsmanship. Subaru let the rich, velvety soup linger on his tongue before setting the spoon down with deliberate grace. Him. This dish is worth dying for. Roswell mused, closing his eyes as if savoring the moment. Despite her modest appearance, Rem's cooking is nothing short of remarkable. Subaru let out a low chuckle, a smirk tugging at his lips. Of course it is. Only a meal of such caliber is befitting of someone like me. He leaned back, to think that such a talent remained hidden in my service until now, how amusing. His gaze, sharp yet composed, turned toward the maid. Tell me, blue-haired one, is it you who crafted this dish? The blue-haired maid gave a polite nod. Yes, that is correct. I am responsible for all of the cooking in this household. My sister, well, let's just say she lacks the necessary skill. Subaru's intrigue shifted. He tilted his head slightly, a knowing smirk playing at his lips. So, your sister is proficient in cleaning, then? I think she serves some purpose. Yes, that's correct. My sister excels at housework, particularly cleaning and laundry, the blue-haired maid confirmed with a nod. Subaru chuckled, his tone rich with certainty. I see. Then, by natural order, if you excel at cooking, surely that must mean you are lacking in other areas, cleaning and laundry, for example. His words weren't a question, but a conclusion, delivered with absolute confidence. On the contrary, I am highly skilled in all household tasks. In fact, I am superior to my sister in cleaning and laundry as well. Subaru blinked. Is that so? Then tell me, what purpose does your sister even serve? His voice carried the weight of absolute authority, yet a trace of amusement danced in his expression, as if he found the revelation both baffling. You are truly a unique young man, Roswell mused, his lips curling into an amused smile, eyes half-lidded as if savoring an inside joke. You come to the mansion of Margrave Mathers, he continued, tilting his head slightly, his mismatched eyes gleaming with curiosity and playfulness. In the kingdom of Luganica, and you say you don't understand a thing. His smile widened, a hint of mockery in his tone, as if he found Subaru's ignorance both entertaining and baffling. "So, what do you mean by that?" Subaru asked, a hint of unease creeping into his voice. "Is something bad happening in this country?" Roswell's ever-present smile didn't waver, but something about the way he looked at Subaru felt off. Damn, why does he always talk like he's playing some kind of game? Subaru thought, trying to read between the lines. He's not just messing with me, is he? No, there's definitely something here. But whether he's warning me or just enjoying watching me squirm, I have no clue. Well, it is not in an agreeable state. Which only makes sense. After all, Luganica doesn't have a king. Roswell's smile remained, but there was a knowing glint in his mismatched eyes. He spoke with a casual lilt, his voice flowing smoothly, almost like he was reciting a well-practiced joke. His fingers lightly drummed against the armrest of his chair, his posture relaxed, too relaxed for someone speaking about a nation without its ruler. Subaru's body tensed at the words, his alarm evident. Noticing this, Roswell let out a soft chuckle, his expression shifting to something almost indulgent. He tilted his head slightly, a faint sigh escaping his lips as if he found Subaru's reaction amusing. Now, don't look so alarmed," he cooed, waving a hand dismissively. "There's no need to be concerned. Everyone in this country is already quite aware of that circumstance being their reality." "I see," he mused, his tone measured. "A nation without a sovereign is a ship without a captain." Roughly around the same time the king went into hiding, an epidemic began to spread throughout the castle. The king and his children are the last of his line. At this moment, the nation is being managed by a council of wise men, and that council is currently in the process of selecting a new king. You can add his expression to how he looked while talking. HMPH. I see now. A kingdom without its king is but a lion without its mane, directionless, uncertain. And to add to this disorder, the royal selection has thrown the people into further confusion. Naturally, such instability invites suspicion and unrest. He closed his eyes for a moment, processing the situation with a regal air, before suddenly opening them with sharp realization. His gaze turned intense, and his voice, though calm. "And then, as if by fate itself, I arrive, an unknown man from a foreign land, stepping into the heart of this fragile kingdom. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Wait, that would make me the most suspicious person in this entire affair." His laughter was deep yet composed, not of panic, but of amusement at the irony. "Ha! How fitting. A man of my stature, appearing at such a pivotal moment. Truly, even history must acknowledge my presence. And on top of that, you made contact with Miss Amelia, thus initiating a direct connection to my household. Ah, the dilemma." His voice carried its usual sing-song quality, but there was a deliberate pause at the end. Subaru, however, was already caught on something else entirely. His expression, once composed, sharpened as his thoughts moved faster than his mouth. His arms remained folded, exuding unwavering confidence, but his golden gaze flickered with intrigue. "Wait a moment, Miss Amelia, not just Amelia. A lord refers to her with an honorific. That leaves only two possibilities." Subaru's brow furrowed slightly, though his posture remained noble and steady. Then, a small, knowing smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. "How curious. A man of status such as yourself, Lord Roswell, the very head of this grand estate, addresses Amelia with the dignity of Miss. There can be but two reasons for this." He extended one finger, his voice steady, exuding absolute certainty. "The first is out of sheer respect, a gesture of courtesy toward a lady of high esteem." Then, he raised a second finger, his tone deepening with intrigue. "The second is far more interesting. It would mean that Amelia's standing surpasses even yours, Lord Roswell. That she holds a position so significant, so undeniable, that even you, ruler of this mansion, must show deference to her title." Amelia held out the insignia, the gem within shimmering faintly as it caught the light. Her expression remained composed yet earnest, confirming Subaru's suspicion. "Officially, my current title is candidate for the 42nd ruler of the Kingdom of Luganica, with the backing of the Honorable Lord Margrave Roswell." Subaru's gaze locked onto the object, yet within his mind, thoughts churned like a storm beneath a calm sea. That insignia, it's not just some ordinary symbol. If it determines one's right to the throne, then it must hold some kind of power, political, magical, or both. If so. His arms remained crossed, his golden eyes narrowing slightly, deep in contemplation. Then, as if speaking to himself, his voice came low but firm. "What is the purpose of that insignia? Amelia, unfazed by the intensity in his voice, answered with quiet certainty. This qualifies one to be a candidate for king. It's a ceremonial touchstone that's used to determine if one is worthy to sit on the throne and lead this country as a monarch. Subaru exhaled lightly through his nose. He allowed a small, confident smile to grace his lips, lifting his chin slightly. HMPH. So this small insignia holds the weight of an entire kingdom's future. Fascinating. The throne of Luganica is not claimed by mere ambition, but by an ancient decree, or perhaps, by something greater still. Amelia glanced at the insignia in her hand, her amethyst eyes reflecting both certainty and hesitation. No decree, no fate, no unseen force will decide what happens next. That responsibility belongs to the ones who hold it. Subaru's confident expression wavered for a brief moment as Amelia's words sank in. His golden eyes flickered between her and the insignia, processing the irony of the situation. Then, with a slow exhale, he crossed his arms, tilting his head slightly as if weighing the gravity of her admission. So, let me get this straight. This insignia, the very thing that determines who gets to rule this entire kingdom, was taken right from your hands. Subaru let the words linger, his lips curling into a knowing smirk. Amelia's face turned slightly red as she stomped her foot. Now don't put it like that. I didn't lose it. It was stolen from me by a thief. Her frustration was clear, but Subaru merely chuckled, shaking his head slightly. Stolen or lost, the result was the same. You were left without the very thing that proves your claim to the throne. He lifted a single hand, palm up, as if presenting an undeniable truth. If fate isn't deciding who gets to be king, then it seems a common thief almost did. Amelia puffed out her cheeks in frustration, gripping the insignia tightly. I got it back, didn't I? Subaru crossed his arms, tilting his head slightly as his golden eyes flickered with amusement. And what happens if you manage to lose that thing, anyway? Will a government office issue another one? Roswell let out a lilting chuckle. Oh, what a dreadful scenario. If you'd lost it, then there would be no doubt. The belief would be that one who can't even protect a tiny insignia has no business being entrusted with the nation's rule, and that would be the end. The casual way he dismissed Amelia's entire future as something so fragile sent a sharp realization through Subaru's mind. So, that's how it is, huh? The throne doesn't go to the strongest or the smartest. It goes to the one who doesn't slip up. No mistakes allowed, no second chances. Brutal. His gaze flicked toward Amelia, who was gripping the insignia a little tighter now. If I hadn't gotten it back for her, she'd be finished. Just like that. No appeal, no way to fight back. I really was the deciding factor here. A slow, satisfied smirk crept onto his lips as he straightened his posture, resting a hand on his hip with the confidence of a man who had just saved an entire kingdom. At least, that's how he saw it. Yeah, knowing all that, I'd say I did a damn good job. And if I was the reason her shot at the throne wasn't completely shattered, then that totally raises my expectations for a nice reward. With a dramatic wave of his hand, Subaru met Amelia's gaze, his voice carrying the weight of a man accustomed to being praised. Would you give me a far larger reward for that act? Subaru's fingers traced the edges of the insignia, his golden eyes glinting with anticipation as his smirk grew wider. If fate had chosen him as a key player in this game, he saw no reason not to start reaping the rewards. You're my savior, and I can't thank you enough, Amelia said warmly. So, ask for anything you'd like. Oh, you heard the lady. Any reward your heart desires. Just say the word. Roswell chimed in, his usual playful tone laced with intrigue. Subaru let out a deep chuckle. Well then, if you're offering. He glanced around, his smirk deepening. I do believe I'm starting to grow fond of this mansion. Before another word could be spoken, the insignia in his grasp pulsed with an intense light. The crimson gem at its core flared brilliantly, radiating a glow akin to the blazing sun. How about a new candidate for king? Subaru mused, the fiery radiance reflecting in his sharp, golden gaze.